Coming at you with a daytime live. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. That sensational spider, gold. Kate Lucas, silver. Collection of people, potentially bronze, but the first single through that, Eric Weigel, 357, bronze. As you can see, I haven't changed a thing. Sitting in the same place, wearing the same clothing. I have showered. Feel kind of proud of myself for that one. It's your B-Day tomorrow. Well, happy B-Day tomorrow, Vampette Christie. Skeletor. It is a little Skeletor, isn't it? Little purple, little hood. I love my sweater too. And not necessarily because it almost looks like a Shazam emblem, because it really actually doesn't. It looks more like a Flash emblem, if anything. But it's only got the one zig. It doesn't have the zig and the zag, so it's not technically that either. And the Shazam logo was more of a thunderbolt as opposed to a lightning bolt. It's got a little, it's a heavier top end, you know what I mean? The Belichick neck, yeah. Oh, but this brand is Aviator Nation. And this is just one of their logos. They have these. My manager, Jason Weinberg, for around the time of the Shazam press tour, he had found a similar sweater. It was a crew neck, not a V-neck like his no hood. And it was red and it had the bolt. And he's like, oh, that reminded me of you. And so he bought me that sweater, which I really liked. And then I happened to be shopping in Austin down on Congress, and there's a Aviator Nation store there. And they had this on the sales rack. How many people had to walk by this piece of art and leave it be in order for me to find it and wear it? Too much, all the time. I have not heard the Strokes' new album. Is it fantastic? My hair is looking a little bit better now. Yeah, well, I think it's because I took a shower. And I, used some of my natural hair oils to just kind of style it. I feel like it's so bright. Does it look really blown out on my face right now? Or is it just in my camera that it looks blown out? What's my favorite part of acting? I don't know. I really like making people laugh. I like entertaining people. I like transporting them out of whatever their particular moment in life is. Even if they're in a good place in their life, I like being able to transport them to a different place, to go spend time with a different cast of characters and, potentially learn or grow or just be entertained through that 30 minutes to 2 hours or whatever. I love being able to do that. I also love that as an actor, you're forced to practice empathy quite a lot. The whole point is to try and get inside the skin of another character, of another person or creature or whatever, but to bring that to life and to do that as authentically as possible. So you actually have to practice quite a bit of empathy to imagine who this character would be and how to bring them to life fairly. And I think that that forces you to really learn a lot, hopefully. How's the weather? The weather's actually kind of nice. It's overcast. It was kind of like showering a little bit, but it's doable. It's doable. If it continues to not rain, then that'll be great. Then we might go paddleboarding or something like that. Your best friend Maria. Hold on a second. Hold on. Your best friend Maria is literally my number one fan. Can she get a shout out? Well, what's up, Maria? How you doing? I appreciate that. I've been looking for my number one fan. I didn't realize that. I also don't understand if she's my number one fan. Why isn't she on here right now? What? That doesn't make any sense. What can I sing for you right now? It's dead depressing here. Well, where is it? Where are you? Where is it dead depressing? I think it's kind of depressing in a lot of places right now. You tried saying Shazam and nothing changed. Did you do something wrong? Yeah, you're not the chosen one. Did you see the movie? Only one person can be chosen. Well, that's not true. One person was chosen before me, and they turned out to be real evil. Goes by the name Black Adam. He kind of went off the reservation. But then the real champion of the people was chosen. So that's why you didn't change. Hi from the up of Michigan. Ooh, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That is so far up there. It's so odd. It's basically Canada. I mean, British tea or American tea? I don't know. Green tea. A good jasmine green tea, wherever that would come from. How's it, sunny South Africa? How's it? Man, I had a blast in South Africa. If you ever get the opportunity, I highly recommend going to Cape Town at the very least. I didn't really go anywhere in South Africa other than Cape Town, but I had a tremendous time. I loved the people. I loved the weather. I happened to be there in our northern hemisphere's winter and their southern hemisphere's summer, and the weather was incredible, and the hiking going up to like Tabletop and Lion's Head, right? I think that's the name of the other one. Kicked my ass, but it was beautiful. It was amazing. I hung out with pelicans, for God's sake. Who gets to do that? We do, if you go near Cape Town. Was it fun voice acting with Yvonne on Tangled? Absolutely. I love working with Yvonne anytime, always. And it was really special that we got some Chuck alumni and some She Loves Me alumni in the show. My gorgeous boy Blue, he's good. He's right here. Hey, Blue boy. Hey. Hey, buddy. Hey. It's on your butt. He's got some barb. He looks like a robo-dog right now because he's got a special collar on him. He has been a bad boy and running off and getting himself into trouble. Gotcha. I'm trying to get something out your butt. Running after wildlife or not so wildlife and barking and being a bit of a terror. Also, we came to find out after a few of our chickens wound up dead. He may... Oh, did I just take a picture of myself? That was strange. That he... not may. He was the culprit in a couple of those chicken murders. He's a chicken murderer. I don't think he meant to kill them so much as like he was playing with them a little too hard and clearly doesn't value them as being other life forms enough to not break their necks and then start chewing their insides. He's a dog, you know. They were once wolves. They're still part wolf down in there, even your little chihuahuas. Isn't that weird? Like, the teeniest little dog, all the weird form of dog that we have now manufactured through crossbreeding, all started once upon a time as wild apex predators. Like, insane. Gray suits me? Great. Oh, you mean like gray hair? My gray hair? Thank you. I appreciate that. That's right. All of your chihuahuas. Every one of you people out there. Yeah, your dog chases squirrels. Of course it does. It's evolutionary. That dog was chasing and eating squirrels. You're horrified. Well, I mean, I was very disappointed in him. But I also love him, and no, it's kind of a bit of nature, you know. What else we got, guys? What's going on? Are we loving ourselves? Are we waking up each day and acknowledging that we are worthy of existing? Are you looking at yourself in the eye, in the mirror, if you need to, and quite literally saying the words, I love you. You are worthy of love. You are exactly where you are meant to be. It's important. Well, good for you that your dog hasn't eaten a chicken. I'm so glad that you haven't had to go through that. I have. Muy difícil. Posture. By the way, I've gotten some interesting suggestions for posture correctors from some of you, so I appreciate that. I did order this thing called Get Better Back or something like that. It's like it's a contraption that you wrap around your lower back and then you wrap around your knees. And apparently your knees push out in such a way that it holds your lower back in a perfect spot no matter how you're sitting. So hopefully that helps me to get worked out.
No.
Big old wasp. See that wasp right there? Not. Leave it alone. I don't need you getting bit on the face. I love this dog so much. Yeah, I love you, even though you murdered chickens. It's like the Pollo Jack the Ripper. But he's so handsome. And now he has an antenna. The wasp could be Jane. Like Ant-Man and the Wasp? It's your wife's birthday, but you don't even tell me what her name is? Come on, bro. I've actually received fan mail. Like back when I don't have a fan mail address anymore, so anybody who thinks you're sending something to me, you're not. But back in the day, I would get fan mail to a P.O. box in Los Angeles, and more often than not, I would get a letter from like a parent saying, "Hey, it's my kid's birthday. Could you autograph a picture for them?" And not even give me their child's name. And I would never sign them back because I was like, I don't know that you're even a real person. Like a lot of people would just like hit you up. You know, they're just trying to get autographs to sell or whatever. I was like, if you can't even be mindful enough to care about your child enough to put their actual name in this request, then it's just not going to happen, guys. Sorry. Hashtag sorry, not sorry. Hashtag lo siento, pero no lo siento. Finland? Well, hi, Finland. What do I miss now that I'm in lockdown? I mean, I miss all the rest of my friends and family. I wish they were all here right now. I'm trying to get them out here. Slowly but surely. It's just difficult because a lot of them have kids now. You know, I'm like in that phase of my life where first you're in the phase of your life where everybody's single, then you're in the phase of your life when everyone's starting to get married, and then you're in the phase of your life when everyone's having kids. And so it's easy when you're single with no kids to move around the cabin. It's not so easy when you got little ones and other commitments. So, but eventually, Norway, not to be beaten by Finland, was like, no, we're here too. Thank you very much. Oh, man. I use a little bit of, I use like a scoop and a half to 2 scoops of the Flow collagen that we make. And I put it in one of these guys with a bunch of hot water and a couple of bags of jasmine green tea. It's kind of become like my favorite drink in the world. I'm not going to lie. Because we put just a little bit of stevia in that collagen mix. And so it's a perfect sweetener. It's so good. Oh, also, go check out Flow Subs if you haven't already. We make great product. Check them out. When did I start speaking Spanish? I don't know. I barely speak Spanish now. I have phrases that I use often in my heyday. If I'm like when I was practicing the most, which typically ends up being on a vacation in a Spanish-speaking country. Like I barely speak Spanish, but my barely spoken Spanish is still more than most of my friends. So in a group of 20 of us, somehow I would be the translator, and I would be using whatever words I could muster plus, pantomiming, and I could get us through. I mean, I'd be pulling words out of my ass somehow. It is incredible though. Like once you're like, if you're in that moment, all the stuff that you learned throughout the years kind of comes rushing back to you sometimes in weird ways. But you haven't slept to watch my live, meaning you haven't gone to sleep since. I don't know. I don't know. Rainy SoCal. Oh, what was that one? What about? Have I or would I teach an acting class? Yeah, I'd teach an acting class for sure. I mean, once I can get all of this crazy dream of mine of Wildwood and all that stuff built, it'll be a whole center for the arts. There'll be all kinds of stuff going on here. And I love being able to encourage and teach and inspire in any way I can younger generations to do far bigger and better things than we have or will ever come up with, Which, I mean, it's inevitable anyway, but that older generations try to hold on to all of that knowledge and power is ridiculous. You're only hurting yourself. Like, I would rather somebody younger and brighter than me come blow the doors off everything and then make the world a better place and easier for everybody. And then I could glide, and we can all glide a little bit more. Power of Zeus. Yeah, Shazam's 2021 ranking on that. I saw that Deadline article. That was pretty cool. Although I don't know, I think it was just the 21st most powerful or given the whole algorithm like successful of just last year. I don't know how many movies came out last year, but I mean, I'd better be 21st than 22nd or anything lower than that for sure. But if there were only like 40 movies, then, still very cool. It was very cool. Because that was one of the things that, a lot of people don't necessarily take into consideration is that the success of a movie, whereas Once Upon a Time was pretty much, primarily, if not exclusively, summed up in their box office, their domestic, actually at once upon a time it was almost like just domestic box office, and then international box office became a much more considerable way to also gauge the success of a film. But ever since home video and now streaming and all of the things, there's so many ways that people consume, so they don't necessarily go out to a movie in the theaters right away. And also given, a movie's budget, which ours on Shazam was not all that big. I mean, it was bigger than a regular, like a rom-com, but it was quite small for a superhero movie. And so all that said, we did pretty good. We did pretty good. You guys helped us do pretty good, which I'm super grateful for. And I love that people are still finding it, They're still finding it I think it's on HBO right now. Where else is it? Is it on Amazon? I don't know. You can easily Google that information. Chuck. $5 days at movies. $5 days. Happy birthday, Lena. That's from your friend Maya Reutman. Oh, you got Shazam off iTunes. Nice. Frank Wentz, consider that your shout out. It's on Amazon. Okay. Yeah. Nice. I think it's also, you know what? You can watch it on Amazon, but then also I think they just have it on HBO's cycle of movies that they play too, which is cool. Posture. I really got to just strengthen this middle thoracic? I don't know. I feel like I'm just making up words at this point. Yeah, like the middle Jurassic vertebrae in my... What are my Easter plans? I mean, we're chilling here because that's what everybody's doing. I might tune into a service, a church service, somewhere online. I don't know. I don't know. I don't personally think that we need to, you know, go to a service in order to somehow fulfill our spiritual duty to God. I don't think that's part of the contract in a relationship with the creator of the universe. I do think that it's incredibly edifying and helpful to be surrounded with like-minded, like-hearted people who value the same things. And I think that within spiritual groups of folks, we can find that, and that can be an incredibly beautiful thing to have community like that and gathering together in order to discuss these things or celebrate these things that bring us together in our spiritual walks. I think is a beautiful and an important thing to do. But you could be isolated for the rest of your life, have no, be stranded on some island, and you have no church building, you have no other people, and you could spend every day just communing with God. You don't need a building, you don't need anyone else to intercede between you and, if you believe in God. Some of you don't, and none of this really applies to you if you don't, but if you do, or if you believe in let's say, the idea of the universe that might be sentient on some level, which I still think is God. I mean, I think God is just a catch-all that we use that everybody kind of understands as that other all-encompassing, energy and thing and knowledge and wisdom and power and, that started it all and will end it all and all that jazz. So, but yeah, you can commune with that energy anytime you want. So I don't know that I'll do anything for a service necessarily tomorrow, but I'll certainly be, as I always try to be, mindful of what this weekend is representative of, which ultimately is love, the love of God. So I hope everybody this weekend, whether you subscribe to the idea of God or the universe or energy or nature or whatever, I hope that you know that authoring, all-encompassing energy loves you deeply and dearly and infinitely. And to, let this weekend be less about, well, it's not really going to be about a lot of bunnies and Easter eggs, is it? Not that people won't be doing that in their own backyards or in their own apartments, but it's less about that and more about being grateful for the love of the Creator, No, I cannot believe that Tangled is 10 years old. That is really making me feel old too. I've never really gone back and watched any of my old stuff. I don't do a lot of rewatching of almost anything, movies or TV shows, or occasionally I do. There's some that are just evergreen and they're so delightful to me and I love watching them over and over again, but I don't know. I still haven't even seen every episode of Chuck. I think I watched up through the third season, or maybe halfway through the third season, and I was actually just criticized. I was very harsh. It's very difficult for me to watch myself on camera without constantly criticizing myself, and I mean literally even things like posture. If I go back and watch old footage of me, I'm like, oh God, you're all hunched over, and I hate it. I hate looking at myself, which I'm trying to get better at. But I think it's kind of it's a pretty common thing amongst people, It's like the first time you hear your voice on an answering machine or something, and the first time you hear your voice recorded, and you're like, that's not me. That's a horrible sound. Who is that person? But the truth is, it's not a horrible sound. It's just you, and it's very alien to how you perceive yourself, So yeah, the posture in Chuck was weird. Thanks. Thank you, person. Wow. I mean, it's not much better now, so I guess it's all still weird. Am I a fan or believer of cryptozoology? I don't know what that is. And I'm gonna look it up right now. Sometimes, I like to look up songs and we'll do a little ditty, we'll do some karaoke. Sometimes I just like to look up weird stuff. Like cryptozoology. It's in the hole. Oh, cryptozoology per Wikipedia, is a pseudoscience and subculture that aims to prove the existence of entities from the folklore record, such as Bigfoot, the Chupacabra, or Mokele Mbembe. I don't know what that is. Right. So, do I believe in cryptozoology? No, probably not. No, I not that I don't think that there could be some creatures of antiquity that literally don't exist now anymore. So you wouldn't be able to find them in the natural world. Well, you could find their remains perhaps, but you couldn't find a living version of it. Maybe there was some version of a living thing that existed many moons ago that early sapiens discovered and observed, and with, whatever their incredible and vivid imaginations were at that point, being very uneducated in science and things, they had very little idea of what they were looking at often, and who knows what stories and narratives they built in their own heads about the powers or even like shapes and sizes of these things that they were rarely seen. So yeah, I don't know. Like clearly, like the Loch Ness Monster is based on sauropods, or I don't know, whatever that like aquatic long-necked dinosaur is. That per fossil records we know some version of that existed. So yeah, where there was something like that on the Earth at one point, probably. I don't know that one still lives in Loch Ness. Also, I just learned like 6 months ago that loch meant lake in Scottish. How sad is that? I was like a loch, like when you go through the locks, at the Panama Canal, like, how they gotta lift you up and down in water. I just assumed that Scotland had a lot of those, locks. Not that's what they called lakes. Dummy. Anywho, yeah. So, and is there a chupacabra? I don't know. I think that there may have been, again, like a strange mammalian, carnivorous, wolfy, coyote type of a thing that probably had some weird alopecia and was haggard and was killing sheep, and people were like, oh my God, ¿qué doing? The chupacabra. So, so yeah, that I don't know. And Bigfoot, I don't know. I've seen enough documentaries or documentary series of people on Netflix who are, and it's sold to you when you click on it. It's like, they've got the proof. And then you watch the whole thing. It's like, well, it's all kind of theoretical. You're like, what are we even talking about? Nobody has real evidence. It's all just kind of hunches still. So, yeah, I don't know. So that's the long and short of, I don't really believe in cryptozoology to the extent that I think any of these animals are actually real. I think that there's far too much technology, observational technology in the world right now, that if these things were real, somebody would catch it on a game cam, on a, a satellite. And by the way, in the next 20 years, it will be next to impossible to hide anything on this earth, unless it's underground somewhere, and there's going to be so many more cameras and things and documentation. I mean, by the way, for anybody out there right now that has kids, keep in mind that you're probably going to want to get your kids, well, depending on how their childhood has been going so far, but I think there's going to be a great need for childhood therapy, or therapy starting even younger, and not because of crazy traumas that your children might be suffering, but really just kind of subtle programming and mechanics that they're all learning right now, namely for example, I was born in 1980. We certainly were there many pictures taken of me and my sisters, but it was on film cameras, and that cost money. Film cost money. Rolls of film cost money. Also, developing all that film cost money and took time. And the idea of just taking endless amounts of photos of your children it just wasn't an option. So kids didn't grow up with this thing in their face all the time. Now, if you have a kid, you know how often you take photos of your kid and how often everyone else in your family and your friends take photos of your kid. Children are now growing, and by the way, and all children are watching us on our little black rectangles as well. So this little device, which again, I've said many times, I think is the greatest Swiss Army knife ever created in the history of mankind, and also one of the deepest pools of narcissism that we've ever fallen into. This incredible and terrifying device is programming young minds very actively right now. So we have to be mindful of that. I'm constantly afraid that my little nephews are going to become insane narcissists because they're adorable and everybody wants to be around them constantly and it's one thing if you want to be around, kids could always feel that everyone wants to hold them and squeeze their cheeks and yada, yada. Now they're all little models. They're all learning how to, and everyone's telling them smile and all that. They're constantly having to pose and walk through life in their little kid brains. I don't think having a really good grasp on what the hell is even going on. So anyway, a little bit of a tangent, but just some potential food for thought. Let's not make a bunch of monsters with our technology like we're making ourselves. Hold on, I'm going to turn on. All of a sudden it got warm. Hold on. And we're back. Batlands asks, pineapple on pizza, yes or no? Not yes. Fuck yes. Pineapple and pepperoni is, to me, in my mind, the greatest combination to ever be put together on a slice of za. Oh yeah, your cousin didn't know what a film camera was in 2004. Yeah, but very few people are. There's a lot of analog world that you better get ready to say goodbye to. And I don't necessarily like. I do think it's important that we remember and appreciate where we came from, so we can appreciate what we have. And the things that we get beyond that, and how long it used to take to do certain things, and how fast you can even travel now. I mean, it's insane. But yeah, a lot of stuff is gonna go the way of the dodo, and I don't think we gotta dig our heels in and be like, we're not gonna change, guys. You're gonna change. Nobody is stopping progress. I don't think our job is to figure out how to stop progress. Our job is to figure out how to control progress, how to moderate progress, how to guide progress, so that when new technologies are developing, as they will continue to do, we're on the same page about how we apply them and how we use them, and not, build AI that's going to destroy the world. That would suck. But I tell you what, I'm ready to fight those robots in the resistance. I'm going to find John Connor. John Connor, come with me if you want to live. What do I think of the Terminator movies? I think they're pretty great. I mean, I love the world. I love the Terminator IP. I think some Terminator movies. I think not all Terminator movies are created equally. I think some of them are better than others. I think some of them tried to expand on the world, and it just didn't really come together. I think it's also a very difficult thing to do if you really think about it. In the first in Terminator, you're handed what is supposed to be the pinnacle of future technology, in this cybernetic walking skeleton with Arnold Schwarzenegger's flesh on top of it. So in order to keep progressing the storyline, it's and time travel is already a thing, right? So once you've established time travel, then you have to accept that then any better version of that robot could have been created and should have come back even before the T-100, right? I think that was his model. And then, because like in T2, which I think as a movie was probably the most soup to nuts, the best in all of the Terminator movies, you jump straight to liquid metal form. So you've now got a liquid metal T-1000 that can morph into anything it wants and absorb bullets and explosions and all that. In fact, the only way they could be killed was by essentially, dropping it into other molten liquid metal, so it got all messed up and dissipated and essentially melted, right? But if the second movie gives you future technology that's so advanced that you have liquid metal morphing bad guys, where do you go from there? How do you somehow explain technology's gone backwards? It didn't really work out the way. It's no, until the resistance actually wins all of that stuff, it's just constantly, going. So I don't know. That was always difficult. It was the same thing, or not the same thing. It's actually a little bit opposite, but I was so aggravated when Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out, for myriad reasons. Obviously, we don't have to rehash all of that. But one of the biggest things that pissed me off was they, chronologically speaking, came all before 4, 5, and 6 that we all knew and loved. Well, we knew the technology that existed in New Hope and Empire and Jedi. We knew the types of ships that they were using and the types of interfaces that they were using and heads-up displays and the graphics level and how the X-Wings looked all kind of dinged up and marked up and whatnot used. It felt like a tangible, real used, hands-on world. And then all of a sudden we go back in time and all of the spaceships are, because now it's in the, late 90s, early 2000s. And so George Lucas decided to use all the tip-top of computer graphics and made all of the worlds way too clean and glossy, and the ships looked way more futuristic and had better tech. And you're like, what are we even doing? What is happening right now? So anyway, and I know I'm not alone in that. That's a pretty commonly held gripe with those first movies. But I just can't believe that was ever. I can't believe a lot of things were allowed to happen in those movies. But that just broke my nerd heart. Anyway, 4, 5, and 6. It's still where it's at. And I'm not trying to be some hater or purist or whatever. I think those movies they understood how to catch the heart and magic that everyone that I know fell in love with. And I don't think that technology or anything else can change that. You can still capture the same heart and magic. You just have to do that. And I don't feel like it's been done, unfortunately, to the same level as those first 3 captured them. But still love that entire world. I would love to work in the Star Wars universe. Would love to. And the Star Trek universe. And the Harry Potter universe. And the Lord of the Rings universe. And all of the nerdy worlds and universes. I have not met my neighbor Willie Nelson yet. He does live in Austin, but I don't know where in Austin. I think he lives on a whole other part of town, the whole other side of town. Which movie, in my opinion, is flawless? Well, Groundhog Day I still contend is one of the greatest films ever made. I'm sure, there are little flaws here and there from my standpoint, but I think it's overall quite nearly flawless. I think the movie Amelie is pretty damn near flawless. Man, that's a delightful movie. It just puts a smile on my face every single time I watch it. It's so full of magic and romance and humor and life and what was her name? Audrey Tautou, was that her name? Or is her name? So good. Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's a pretty fantastic movie. Pretty flawless in my mind. I think Last Crusade, and I know this might sound blasphemous, but I think Last Crusade may even be better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. Certainly on par, in my mind, certainly on par. I think it might even be a little bit better. Just, the technology available to the whole creative team at that point, and Harrison Ford in his absolute prime. Plus you get Sean Connery. Come on. Henry Jones Jr. We call the dog Indiana. I mean, just so good. The dog? You are named after the dog? You chose wisely. It's so good. Oh, Wales is in the house. Oh, Shawshank Redemption, another basically flawless movie. Yeah. Shawshank is fantastic. I think that, I don't know. I think that any movie that has that kind of journey of redemption, of justice, like what an incredible tale to wind the audience through, and all the revelations and all of the twists and turns that can all happen just within the walls of a prison, and the characters, and Morgan Freeman, how do you go wrong? I am working on some movies right now, but a lot, like all of the actual like Hollywood movie type things that I'm working on, studio films and stuff, everything's on pause. So, and we don't know, nobody really knows how long everything's going to be on pause, but I have a feeling it's going to be a good while. So, I'm actually going to try and shoot some like guerrilla movies here on my ranch, little short films, or maybe even like a feature film or some like a series or something. So, if we make it happen, look out for that. I'm trying to get some friends of mine to come out here, and we can all like quarantine together and make movies together. Because we're all just sitting around anyway, so. Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter? Why do I have to choose between the two of those? I refuse. But Lord of the Rings. But I like both. But Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to shave my head. I don't think I'm going to have to shave my head. I'm going to get a Flowbee. Get a nice even cut all the way around. Expectations on working with Cole Sprouse? Super pumped to work with Cole. We were gearing up to be seeing each other. Actually, no, yeah, we would already been in pre-production and doing all of our rehearsals and stuff right now. So, bummed that we gotta, push that to a later date, whenever the hell that's going to be. But eventually, very much looking forward to rolling up our sleeves and making a movie together with Steve Pink and all the gang at Mandeville and at Lionsgate. Does anybody have any more questions? Is there anything else we want to talk about? Do I know Aston? Do I know Skylar Aston? I think I've met him before, briefly. I don't really know him well, or intimately, or biblically. Broadway does not need Chuck the Musical. No, it doesn't. In fact, in my humble opinion, Broadway needs less Hollywood remake ports of Broadway musicals. I understand that Broadway producers and creatives, they feel safer taking an unknown IP, a known product, movie or television show that people already have essentially voted on in the past or whatever and said, I like this and we like this, and they feel safer being able to take that known thing and making a Broadway musical about it. And not to say that there haven't been, I think, some very impressive translations from film to Broadway show. By the way, both in musical and in drama, but I don't think it's what we need more of. I think we need less of it. Not none of it, but I would like to see more original shows. I'd like to see more original movies, more original series, more original Broadway shows, and less remakes and rehashes and revamps. But again, not that I'm not open to those too. I have plenty of ideas about certain remakes or reboots or things that I think are tasteful and more, I don't know, not necessary, but I just think that some things you don't want to touch because you don't need to touch them. And then there's other things like a movie like The Last Starfighter that I think, just because of where technology was at that time and because of whatever budget they had a great story, but not the greatest budget to, compete on. And also, I don't know, just the time in the 80s when it came out. And so it became kind of a niche, like a cult classic, but I don't think it's gotten its day in the sun. And I think a movie like that deserves a better day in the sun. Or sometimes I think things need a reboot or a remake because they're just older and antiquated in general, and maybe younger audiences are not going to find it, and they really should find it because the story is so good. I often point to a movie like It's a Wonderful Life as an example of that. My fear is that It's a Wonderful Life will become kind of an antiquated story that people won't see the way that they used to. And I think it's an important story about valuing your life even when things are falling down around you. I mean, that was taking place during the Great Depression, essentially, and Run on a Bank and George Bailey and just trying to do his best and thinking the world would be better off without him, and how many of us need to be reminded of the fact that the world is not better off without us. The world is better with us. You are serving a purpose in this world, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not. There is infinite value and potential inside of you, and do not give up. Do not let that go. That is a fact. That is a truth. And if you can hold on to that, and we can be reminded of that, and I think movies like It's a Wonderful Life remind us of that, that's an important lesson. And so I would hate for that. Not that you can't make another movie that has the same lesson, but I don't know. Do I think that Kiss worked at the end of Chuck and Morgan was right? Absolutely. Here's the thing. People ask me this question a lot. Did Sarah remember? Of course Sarah remembered. I can't imagine a world. I mean, Chuck was such a feel-good, everything works out in the end type of a show. So even though it feels like the show left off a little ambiguous, I think the point is for the audience to put together for themselves that of course it ends up in a happy ending. And honestly, even though I was never told this, I do think it's probably a solid theory that our writers, Chris Fedak and Josh Schwartz and everybody else in the writers' room, kind of intended to almost be, maybe the kiss didn't work so much as I'm now telling her our whole relationship right there on the beach, which is essentially the perfect way to restart the series. Is almost as if now I'm telling her that entire journey that we went through, and that ultimately at the end of that, even if the kiss wasn't a magical kiss, me telling her all that will jar her memory enough for us to be happily ever after. So I 100% believe that Chuck and Sarah, ride off into the sunset, fully in love and fully going and living the life that they were destined to live. Because if they don't, as I've said, I will kill someone. I will track down whatever power that be and demand that it have a, correction if in fact Chuck and Sarah don't end up. And if they don't correct it, then there will be a murder-suicide. I don't know we're not allowed to do that. I don't think we're allowed to do that to our fans. It doesn't make any sense. How much caffeine have I had today? I don't know. 2 tea bags worth. I don't know how much that is. How do I deal with grief with an anxiety disorder? Well, first and foremost, if it's something that is that you feel, if you're feeling anything right now that feels like it is an urgent emergency, if you were in a bad mental or emotional state so much that you are unsure of even what you're going to do right now, or if something is overwhelming you right now, there are professionals that you can call on the phone. In fact, let me see if I can even, and I'm not, by the way, projecting onto anyone that you might even be feeling suicidal, but if you are having thoughts like that, the National Suicide Prevention Line, suicide prevention, it's a 1-800 number, and this applies, I believe it's the national line, so it's only to the United States, but please Google. Every one of your countries, I'm sure, has a line just like this, but it's 1-800-273-8255 if that's what you're feeling right now. And if you're not feeling that and you just need to process some stuff, then I would highly encourage you to Google just online therapy. Well, again, let's get into it. I'm even going to go for free online therapy. That's one of the top hits. This place, let's see here. Free online therapy. BetterHelp.com? Oh, Talkspace. Talkspace.com? Yeah, try Talkspace.com. I don't know. They look very legit to me. Psychiatry, depression, anxiety, relationships, all kinds of stuff that's popping up here. Let me see if it's going to be flipped for you, but that's kind of what their splash page looks like. And if it's not a professional that you feel like you need to talk to, then talk to your friends, talk to your family. Seriously, call somebody, FaceTime somebody. If they're with you in the same domicile right now, grab them, sit down with them, say, hey, I need to talk through some stuff. Talkspace also has an app. Fantastic. Go download that. There's a reason why, by the way, people like myself will always almost harp on talk to somebody, and it's because it is one of the most effective tools in our mental and emotional well-being journey. If we are not speaking what we are thinking, then our mind and heart start getting clogged up with all manner of machinations of like things that false narratives that we'll even start spinning on and sputtering out and ruminating on, because you're not just bouncing these ideas off of another human being, which oftentimes is all you may need to do just to get a little hip check. You know what I mean? Just a little mental or emotional chiropractic, like, you know, when they, like, if you've ever been to a chiropractor and they like, you know, they kind of get your neck a little and then they got and you get your deal. Like, that's what you need sometimes as a friend or family member, to just give you a little check like that in your mental or emotional neck or back or whatever, and just be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that didn't feel, whatever I was feeling about that person or that thing wasn't feeling so great, but now that I've talked it out, I've got a better perspective on it. And perspective is beyond important, guys. We all think that our perspective on life, on ourselves, on the world, on other people is very clear. Let me tell you right now, you are wrong if you think that you see everything clearly, because nobody sees everything clearly. Nobody does. The Dalai Lama doesn't see everything clearly, because the only way to see everything clearly is to actually be able to know everything that's going on in everyone else's hearts and minds at the same time as actually knowing all the things that are going on in your heart and mind, and that's impossible. You can't, right? So we might be feeling pretty groovy and somebody else is acting kind of strange, and all of a sudden, because of our own past insecurities, traumas, and things of of that nature, we will now project a narrative like, oh, they're acting weird because they don't like me, or I did this thing and that's making them, or whatever the cause and effect is. And we will oftentimes internalize that and start blaming ourselves instead of knowing and having clear perspective, which is, oh, if you would have known better, you would have known that person actually just got into a fight with their spouse and they're being real closed down and that has nothing to do with you. In fact, 90% of the time, it has nothing to do with you when somebody else is acting negatively or incorrectly or whatever, abusively. It more than 90%. It's not about us. It's about them. It's about what's going on in their own heart and mind that's bringing out these behaviors in them. So perspective. Try and do everything you can to get clear perspective. And therapists are really helpful for getting clear perspective when friends and family aren't really the option anymore because they might be biased in some way, right? Like it's difficult to talk to friends and family and get really clear or clean, perhaps, advice, because we all, even if they're not being biased, even if they're giving us completely clinical advice, we still think that they see us in a certain way, and therefore that's why they are telling us to do things in a certain way, right? So having an objective therapist be able to work through things with them, and that's, I think an incredibly helpful thing. And I recommend it to everyone. I've said it before and I will say it till I die. If you have never been to therapy, go to therapy. And if you do go to therapy, go to more. It's, you can never have too much. I speak this to myself. I need to go to more therapy myself. I do understand that this is a very tricky time to be going to a therapist, but as far as I know, almost every therapist in the world right now has access to the internet and all have a laptop or a tablet with it or a phone with a camera on it, and they can all do FaceTime online sessions, which are incredibly helpful. They're basically, almost the exact same thing. And in fact, as far as therapy is concerned, it's basically kind of the same thing, because it's not like you ever hug your therapist. There's not a lot of physical touch between a doctor sitting across from you in a room and you. It's that there are patient-doctor boundaries in that. So it's not like you're missing anything in the exchange. Whereas like if you're FaceTiming with a family member that you would normally hug, you might be missing that in the exchange. With this, it's not. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. And as far as grief, to the original question, as far as grief is concerned, I think that it's incredibly important to be gentle with yourself and know that grieving is not just a natural part of being a human being, but it's a very necessary part of being a human being. We have got to grieve. We are blessed with the emotions that make us human. And our ability to feel is, I think, one of the most magical and beautiful things that we have. And to stifle that in any way, shape, or form is a crime. As guys, we've been conditioned and encouraged for many, many years to, have a stiff upper lip and strong back and, not show our emotions and be manly, whatever the fuck that means. And I think that's done a lot of damage in our world, as and some of that stuff we're seeing for the first time. How that's manifested out. So at any rate, I encourage all the men out there to, allow yourself to feel if you haven't, allow yourself to cry if you haven't. And all of the women who are in these men's lives, if you perhaps have, there has been a lot of expectation even from women in some of our lives too, that we need to have the stiff upper lip and we need to be the strong one. And, I would encourage you to, if you feel that way, maybe to take a look at that and maybe take a different tact and encourage your man, the men in your life to, be in touch with that. I guarantee you'll have a better relationship at the end of the day, because men and women I do think are very, very different, but we are also very, very the same. And that is one of the ways in which we are the same. Trauma affects us. We are human beings and trauma affects us, man or woman, adult or child. And so you got to be able to go through that, acknowledge it, acknowledge the trauma as it's happening to you. That's completely fair. Say, this is happening. I identify that this is happening, and this is the way it's making me feel right now. Speak that, acknowledge that, and then allow yourself to feel what you need to feel. But just, try to be respectful of the fact that not everyone is feeling what you might be feeling, and nor should everyone feel what you are feeling. I think that's a part of that balance. 4 seconds left. Love you guys. I might hit you.